The morning sun of Hanbit cast golden light across the vast agricultural domes of New Seoul. Commander Ji-won Park stood at her office window on the 15th floor of the administration tower, watching farmers begin their daily work in the fields below. The sight never failed to bring her peace. 2.5 million humans had made this world their home, and every day proved that humanity could build something beautiful among the stars. Ji-won had been one of the first to arrive on Hanbit 12 years ago. Back then, the planet was nothing but empty grasslands and crystal formations. Now, sprawling cities dotted the landscape, connected by transport tubes that gleamed like silver ribbons in the sunlight. Children played in parks where earth flowers bloomed alongside native Hanbit plants. The air smelled of home-cooked meals and the sweet fragrance of the local purple trees that grew in perfect rows along every street. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Hyun Kim entered the office carrying a data pad and wearing his usual excited expression. Hyun ran the Xenobiology Research Center, and his discoveries had helped the colony understand how to live in harmony with Hanbit's ecosystem. Ji-won, you need to see this, Hyun said, setting the pad on her desk. The Threx delegation sent us their final agricultural data. Look at these crop yields. Ji-won picked up the pad and studied the numbers. The Threx were an insectoid species that lived 3 systems away. Despite their frightening appearance, they had proven to be gentle neighbors who shared their advanced farming techniques freely. The data showed that using Threx methods, New Seoul's food production would increase by 40%. This is incredible, Ji-won said. We could feed 5 million people with these techniques. And that's not all, Hyun continued. The Vithara want to establish a crystal growing facility here. They say our soil conditions are perfect for their meditation crystals. In exchange, they'll teach us their mineral processing methods. The Vithara were crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies. Their technology was based on growing crystals rather than building machines. They had helped New Seoul develop clean energy systems that worked in perfect harmony with the planet's natural electromagnetic field. Captain Min-ho Lee knocked on the open door and stepped inside. As head of colonial defense, Min-ho commanded a small force of 400 volunteers who mostly dealt with wildlife management and emergency response. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of a former Earth Special Forces officer, but his face always held a gentle smile when dealing with civilians. The Morian trade ship just docked, Min-ho reported. They brought that new water purification technology we requested and medical supplies for the outer settlements. The Morians lived in the ocean world of Aquatica, 2 systems closer to the galactic core. Their amphibious nature had given them incredible skills in water management and biotechnology. They had helped New Seoul design water systems that could turn the driest desert areas into fertile farmland. Sora Choi's voice came through the communication system from the control center 1 floor below. Commander Park, we're receiving the weekly check-in signals from all settlements. Everyone reports normal operations and good health. Sora managed all communications between New Seoul's various cities and settlements. She also handled diplomatic contact with their alien neighbors. Her cheerful personality and quick mind for languages had made her popular with all 3 species they regularly dealt with. Thank you, Sora, Ji-won replied through the comm. Any messages from Earth? The monthly supply ship left Earth 3 weeks ago. It should arrive next month with new colonists and equipment from the construction program. Ji-won smiled. Every month, more families chose to leave Earth's crowded cities for a new life on Hanbit. The colony had started with scientists and engineers, but now it welcomed teachers, artists, farmers, and anyone who wanted to build a better future. Children born on Hanbit had never known war, pollution, or scarcity. They grew up believing the universe was full of friends waiting to be met. Engineer Do-hyun Kang arrived with his daily infrastructure report. Do-hyun kept New Seoul's systems running smoothly, from the atmospheric processors that maintained perfect air quality to the transport networks that moved people and goods across the planet. His calm efficiency meant that most colonists never had to worry about basic services. Systems green, Do-hyun reported. The new power grid integration with Vithara crystal technology is working perfectly. We're generating 30% more clean energy than we use. The excess is being stored in their crystal batteries. Any problems with the outer settlements? Jiwan asked. Minor repairs needed at Settlement 7, but nothing urgent. The Morian water systems are working so well that some areas are becoming too fertile. We might need to expand the agricultural zones. Jiwan laughed. Problems like that, I can handle. The afternoon brought the weekly community meeting in Central Plaza. Jiwan walked through the city center, greeting colonists as they went about their daily lives. Shop owners called out friendly hellos from their storefronts. Children ran past, playing games that mixed Earth traditions with customs learned from their alien neighbors. Teenagers practiced Threx harmony singing, their voices blending in complex patterns that somehow sounded both alien and beautiful. The plaza filled with families as the meeting began. These gatherings had started as administrative necessity, but had evolved into community celebrations. People shared news, discussed upcoming projects, and celebrated achievements. Dr. Kim announced the successful cultivation of hybrid crops that combined earth vegetables with native Hanbit plants. The results were nutritious foods that grew easily, in local soil. Parents with young children cheered the news. Captain Lee reported that the wildlife management program was working well. Native predators had learned to avoid human settlements, while harmless species moved freely through the cities. Some of the local bird-like creatures had even started nesting in the parks. Sora described the upcoming cultural exchange with the Vithara. A group of their young would visit New Seoul to learn about human art and music, while human students would travel to the Crystal Cities to study harmonic technology. As the meeting ended, families dispersed to evening activities. Some attended concerts where human musicians played alongside Threx composers. Others visited the art galleries where Vithara crystal sculptures shared space with human paintings. Many simply went home to share dinner and talk about their day. Jiwon returned to her office as the sun set behind the western mountains. The city lights came on automatically, a soft glow that never disturbed the natural beauty of the night sky. She could see the 3 moons of Hanbit rising over the horizon, their combined light making the crystal formations sparkle like diamonds. A message waited on her personal communication terminal. It was from her daughter Minji, who worked as a teacher in Settlement 4. The message included pictures of her students working on a science project about local geology. Human children and young Threx worked together, their different perspectives combining to create insights that neither species could have achieved alone. Jiwon felt the deep satisfaction that came from knowing her people were truly happy. New Seoul represented humanity at its best. They had left behind the conflicts and struggles of Earth to build something new. Here, there was enough for everyone. Here, differences were celebrated rather than feared. Here, the future looked bright, with possibilities. She walked to her window one final time before heading home. The city stretched out below her, peaceful and prosperous. Transport tubes carried late commuters home to their families. The agricultural domes glowed softly as automated systems tended the crops through the night. In the distance, she could see the lights of other settlements, each one a community of humans who had chosen hope over fear. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. Perhaps the Marians would share more of their biotechnology, or the Vethera would teach them new applications for crystal energy. Maybe Earth would send news of other colonies being established on distant worlds. The universe seemed full of potential for those willing to reach out in friendship. Jiwon had no way of knowing that forces beyond her understanding were already in motion. Decisions made in distant council chambers would soon threaten everything her people had built. The peace and prosperity of New Seoul rested on the galaxy's assumption that humanity was too small and too new to matter in the larger schemes of interstellar politics. That assumption would prove to be the greatest mistake in galactic history. The Galactic Tribunal's council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian floor, beneath a dome that showed the swirling colors of the galactic core. 12 massive thrones held the representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, each seat designed to accommodate the unique physiology of its occupant. Supreme Arbitrator Vexthul, a towering being of pure energy contained within a crystalline framework, called the session to order with harmonic tones that resonated through the chamber. The agenda for today's session included 17 routine matters of interstellar law, trade disputes, and territorial adjustments. Item 14 was listed simply as Human Colonial Expansion, Administrative Relocation. Vex Thule had reviewed the file briefly that morning. A primitive species had established settlements in contested space without proper authorization. The solution was standard procedure that had been applied thousands of times before. Ambassador Knight, the tribunal's diplomatic representative, had prepared the basic facts. Humans were a young species that had achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Their homeworld of Earth showed signs of environmental stress and overpopulation, typical of species in their early technological development. They had established one major colony on a planet they called Hanbit, with a population of approximately 2.3 million individuals. The complication was location. Hanbit sat at the intersection of three different territorial claims that had been disputed for over 1,000 years. The Zarian Empire claimed the system as part of their ancient boundaries. The hegemony insisted it fell within their sphere of influence. The Coalition of Free Worlds argued that the system should remain neutral territory. None of the three powers had bothered to colonize the planet, because doing so would have triggered a major war. Then humans had arrived and simply started building cities. They seemed completely unaware that they had settled in the middle of one of the galaxy's most sensitive territorial disputes. Their ignorance of galactic law was understandable, given their recent emergence onto the interstellar stage, but it created a problem that needed swift resolution. Arbitrator Kelthon, whose species had mastered genetics millions of years ago, spoke first. The humans appear to be unaware of the territorial complexities of their chosen world. Standard relocation protocols should resolve this matter efficiently. Arbitrator Zephys, whose crystalline form pulsed with calculated thought patterns, agreed. Our records indicate that humans are adaptable and compliant when approached with proper authority. They should respond well to relocation incentives. The discussion proceeded with the calm efficiency of beings who had resolved countless similar situations. Humans would be offered suitable alternative worlds in designated colonization zones. They would receive compensation for their investment in infrastructure. Transport would be provided to move their population to approved locations. The process typically took 6 to 18 months and resulted in grateful cooperation from the relocated species. Admiral Korth of the Hegemony had requested permission to address the tribunal regarding this matter. He entered the chamber with the precise movements of a career military officer, his dark blue uniform bearing the insignia of 1,000 victorious campaigns. The Hegemony had fought wars across half the galaxy to establish their current territory, and Korth commanded respect, even among the tribunal's ancient civilizations. Honored arbitrators, Korth began, his voice carrying the authority of absolute conviction. The Hegemony offers our full assistance in resolving this human situation. We have extensive experience in population management and can ensure the relocation proceeds smoothly and quickly. Vexithule's harmonic response indicated approval. The tribunal appreciates the Hegemony's willingness to assist. What timeline do you propose for this operation? Standard procedure suggests a gradual approach, Korth replied. However, given the sensitive nature of the territorial disputes involved, the Hegemony recommends rapid relocation to prevent any of the major powers from attempting to use the human presence as justification for territorial claims. We can complete the entire operation within one standard month. Arbitrator Knight consulted her files. Human psychology profiles suggest they respond better to gradual change. Perhaps a slower approach would generate less resistance. Admiral Korth's expression remained professional, but his tone suggested disagreement. Respectfully, Ambassador, my experience with primitive species indicates that delayed action often leads to complications. Humans have invested considerable emotional attachment in their colony. The longer we wait, the more difficult relocation becomes. Overlord Dreeken, Korth's chief strategist, had prepared detailed briefings on human capabilities. According to Hegemony intelligence, humans possessed adequate space travel technology but limited military capacity. Their colony showed no signs of defensive installations or weapons manufacturing. The population consisted primarily of civilians engaged in agricultural and scientific activities. The tribunal's debate continued for 3 hours, covering legal precedents, logistical requirements, and diplomatic protocols. None of the arbitrators questioned the fundamental assumption that humans would comply with the relocation order. In 12,000 years of galactic governance, the tribunal had never encountered a species that refused lawful relocation when presented with proper authority and reasonable alternatives. Arbitrator Mordak, whose species had colonized 300 worlds across the Outer Rim, raised the question of communication. Have the humans been informed of the legal complexities surrounding their chosen world? Negative, Ambassador Nith replied. Standard procedure requires tribunal authorization before initiating contact with developing species. We avoided premature interference in their colonial development. Then they remain unaware that their settlement violates territorial agreements? Correct. They appear to believe they selected an unclaimed world. The irony was not lost on the assembled arbitrators. Humans had inadvertently chosen the one planet in the sector that no advanced civilization dared to claim, precisely because they lacked the knowledge to understand why it remained unclaimed. Supreme Arbitrator Vexthul called for the final vote. The matter before us is straightforward. Humans have established an unauthorized colony in disputed territory. Standard relocation protocols will resolve the situation while protecting both human interests and galactic stability. All in favor of Decree 447G, immediate relocation of human settlements to designated reservation zones? 11 harmonic tones indicated unanimous approval. Only arbitrator Thais abstained, citing insufficient data on human cultural psychology. The decree was officially recorded in the Galactic Legal Archive with full legal authority. Admiral Korth received authorization to proceed with the relocation operation using whatever methods he deemed appropriate. The tribunal's only requirement was that the human population be relocated safely and efficiently to approved colonial zones within the Outer Rim territories. Ambassador Nith prepared the standard diplomatic package for delivery to the human authorities. The message would explain the legal situation, offer alternative worlds, and provide transport assistance. Experience suggested that human leaders would appreciate the tribunal's consideration in resolving the territorial conflict before it escalated into warfare. The communication package included detailed star charts showing approved colonization zones, technical specifications for worlds suitable for human habitation, and formal recognition of human rights under galactic law. The tribunal had even included generous compensation packages to cover the costs of relocation and reconstruction. What none of the arbitrators understood was that the message would never be delivered. Admiral Korth had already dispatched Hegemony, advance forces to disable human communication systems under the cover of technical preparation for the relocation operation. Overlord Dreeken's strategic plan called for communications blackout to prevent humans from appealing the decision or requesting time to prepare. From the Hegemony's perspective, this was merely efficient administration. Humans would be relocated quickly and safely, the territorial dispute would be resolved, and Hanbit's valuable resources would be secured for proper galactic powers. The operation would be completed before humans even understood what was happening. The tribunal session ended with the satisfaction of another successful resolution. 12 ancient civilizations had once again proven their ability to maintain galactic order through wise governance and careful law. The human situation would be resolved within a month, and the dangerous territorial dispute over Hanbit would finally be settled. Supreme Arbitrator Vexthul filed the standard completion report, noting that the human relocation should serve as a model for future situations involving primitive species in contested territories. The case would be studied in diplomatic academies as an example of how proper authority and careful planning could resolve complex situations without violence. None of the arbitrators bothered to review detailed files on human history or psychology. They had no reason to study the military conflicts, survival instincts, or cultural values of a species they considered primitive and harmless. The first sign of trouble came when Sora Choi lost contact with the orbital communication relay. at Aero 347 local time. She had been working the night shift in the communications center, monitoring routine traffic between New Seoul and the outer settlements when every external channel went silent simultaneously. The local network still functioned perfectly, but all signals to and from space had been cut. Sora ran diagnostic checks on the equipment, thinking perhaps a solar flare or equipment failure had disrupted the relay systems. Everything tested, normal on the ground, but the orbital stations had simply vanished from all sensors. She reached for the emergency communication protocol to wake Commander Park when her screens lit up with new contacts. 847 ships materialized in Hanbit's orbital space, their arrival synchronized with military precision. The vessels were massive, angular designs that bore no resemblance to the gentle curves of Vethera crystal ships or the flowing lines of Marian biotechnology. These were warships, bristling with weapons and shield generators that glowed with threatening energy. Commander Ji-won Park arrived at the communications center within minutes of Sora's emergency call. She stared at the tactical display showing the enormous fleet that now surrounded their peaceful world. Nothing in first contact protocols had prepared her for this situation. The ships maintained formation like predators circling prey, making no attempt to communicate or explain their presence. Captain Minho Lee rushed in with his small security team, their faces tense with the realization that 400 volunteers with crowd control equipment faced nearly 1,000 warships. Ji-won, what are we dealing with here? Before she could answer, the screens flickered and displayed the image of Admiral Korth. His alien features were harsh and angular, with eyes that showed no warmth or compassion. Behind him stood other uniformed figures, their postures radiating military authority and absolute confidence. "Attention, human settlement," Korth's voice carried the tone of unquestionable command. "By authority of Galactic Tribunal Decree 447G, this planet has been designated for immediate evacuation. You have 12 hours to prepare for relocation processing. Resistance will not be tolerated." Ji-won stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over despite the shock. "This is Commander Park of New Seoul Colony. We were not informed of any legal issues regarding our settlement. We request immediate dialogue to resolve this misunderstanding." Admiral Korth's expression showed irritation at what he clearly considered primitive insubordination. "There is no misunderstanding. Your species lacks the authority to claim territory in this sector. Compliance with relocation orders is mandatory under galactic law. We have families here, children, elderly people, who cannot simply pack up and leave with 12 hours' notice," Ji-won replied. "Surely we can negotiate a reasonable timeline for voluntary relocation." Overlord Dreeken appeared beside Korth on the screen, his face showing the calculating coldness of a career military strategist. "Commander, you appear to misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. This is notification of a legal action that will proceed regardless of your cooperation." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the communication center in stunned silence. Sora immediately began trying to contact Earth, but all long-range communication systems had been disabled. The colony was completely isolated, cut off from any possibility of outside help or support. Engineer Do-hyun Kang arrived with disturbing news about the infrastructure systems. "Someone has been placing devices near our power plants and water treatment facilities. They look like monitoring equipment, but they're configured for remote detonation." Dr. Hyun Kim reported similar findings at the research centers and agricultural facilities. Unknown devices had been secretly installed at every critical system in the colony. The aliens had been planning this operation for weeks or months, systematically preparing to disable everything that kept New Seoul functioning. The 12-hour deadline passed in desperate preparation. Families packed what they could carry, while community leaders tried to organize evacuation procedures for 2.5 million people. The task was impossible, but they had to try. Parents held crying children while explaining that they had to leave their homes. Elderly colonists who had spent their final years building something beautiful faced the reality that it was all being taken away. Captain Lee positioned his security forces at key locations throughout the city, knowing they could do nothing against orbital bombardment but determined to maintain order and protect civilians. His volunteers were teachers, engineers, and farmers who had volunteered for emergency service. They were not soldiers, but they were the only defense New Sol had. When the deadline expired, Admiral Korth's fleet began what he called compliance enforcement operations. The first orbital strikes targeted the spaceport, communications arrays, and government buildings. Massive beams of energy descended from space, turning vital infrastructure into smoking craters within minutes. The explosions shook the ground, like earthquakes. Windows shattered across the city as shock waves rolled through the streets. The carefully maintained beauty of New Sol began to disappear under clouds of smoke and debris. Children screamed in terror as buildings collapsed around them. Dr. Kim's research facility vanished in a ball of fire that could be seen from space. Hundreds of scientists who had dedicated their lives to understanding and preserving Hanbit's ecosystem died instantly. Years of careful study and breakthrough discoveries were reduced to ash in seconds. The agricultural domes came next. The structures that fed the colony exploded one by one, their transparent walls spraying deadly fragments across the surrounding areas. Farmers who had been tending the crops died alongside the plants they had nurtured. The sweet smell of growing things was replaced by the acrid stench of burning chemicals and organic matter. Hegemony dropships descended through the smoke, disgorging thousands of armored troops into the city streets. These soldiers moved with the ruthless efficiency of forces that had conquered dozens of worlds. They carried weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill, but their orders were to use whatever force necessary to ensure compliance. Captain Lee's security teams tried to establish defensive positions, but they were overwhelmed within hours. His volunteers fought with pistols and riot control equipment against military-grade assault weapons and powered armor. They died bravely, buying time for civilians to escape toward the outer settlements. Sora managed to encode one final message to Earth before hegemony forces reached the communications center. The transmission was fragmentary and brief, but it contained the essential facts that would eventually reach humanity's homeworld. New Sol under attack. Orbital bombardment. Millions dead. Unknown alien force. Send help. The message burst, lasted only seconds before the transmitter was destroyed by incoming fire. Sora died at her station, her hand still reaching for the controls that might have sent additional warnings to Earth. The roundup began at dawn of the second day. Hegemony forces moved through the ruins systematically, forcing survivors into transport, vehicles that carried them to hastily constructed detention facilities. Families were separated without explanation. Children were loaded onto different transports than their parents. Elderly colonists who could not walk fast enough were left behind to fend for themselves. The detention camps were brutal in their efficiency. Survivors were processed like cargo, assigned numbers instead of names, and organized into work groups based on their physical capabilities. Those deemed useful for labor were kept alive. Those considered too weak or too old to work simply disappeared during the night. Jiwan found herself in Work Camp 7, a collection of metal barracks surrounded by energy fences that would kill anyone who touched them. The guards were aliens she had never seen before, beings who showed no more emotion when dealing with humans than farmers might show when managing livestock. The work was mining. Hanbit's crystal formations contained rare minerals that the hegemony valued for military applications. The same beautiful formations that had made the planet attractive to human colonists now became the reason for their enslavement. Survivors worked 12-hour shifts digging out crystals with primitive tools, while guards watched for any sign of resistance. Dr. Kim lasted 3 weeks before his body gave out under the physical demands. Captain Lee organized a desperate escape, attempt that failed when informants revealed the plan to the guards. The participants were executed publicly as a warning to other prisoners. Do-hyun used his engineering knowledge to sabotage some of the mining equipment, but the acts of defiance only resulted in reduced food rations for his entire work group. The choice between resistance and survival became impossible when any action endangered innocent people. The hegemony's official reports to the Galactic Tribunal described a successful relocation operation completed with minimal resistance. Admiral Korth filed documentation showing that humans had been safely transferred to appropriate processing facilities, pending transport to approved colonial zones. Overlord Dreeken's efficiency ratings received commendation for completing the operation ahead of schedule and under budget. The signal reached Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station at Lagrange Point 5 at 1423 Greenwich Mean Time on a Tuesday that had started like any other day. Communications specialist Yoonji Nam was processing routine transmissions when her equipment detected the fragmentary burst from Hanbit. The signal was weak, corrupted by its journey across interstellar space, but the encryption signatures matched New Sol Colony's emergency protocols. Yoonji spent 4 hours cleaning up the transmission, using advanced algorithms to reconstruct the damaged portions. When the message finally played clearly, her hands began to shake. New Sol under attack, orbital bombardment, millions dead, unknown alien force, send help. The recording ran for only 18 seconds, but those words changed everything. Within an hour, the signal had been verified by 3 separate analysis teams and transmitted directly to President Nari Song's emergency council chamber beneath the Global Defense Complex in Geneva. President Song listened to Sora's desperate message 3 times before speaking. Around the conference table sat the leaders of Earth's unified government, military commanders who had spent their careers preparing for theoretical alien contact, and scientists who had helped plan humanity's expansion to the stars. None of them had prepared for this. How long ago was this transmitted? Song asked. Admiral Taehyung Shin, commander of Earth's defense forces, consulted his datapad. Based on signal propagation time, the attack began approximately 6 months ago. If this message is accurate, New Sol has been under siege for half a year while we knew nothing about it. Dr. Ji-hee Moon, director of the Advanced Weapons Research Division, spoke quietly. Mr. President, if these aliens have the capability to mount orbital bombardments against civilian targets, we have to assume they possess military technology far beyond our current defensive capabilities. General Won Ho-yu disagreed. We don't know their numbers or their actual technological level. This could be a raiding force rather than a major military power. We need more information before making assumptions about their capabilities. President, Song studied the tactical displays showing Earth's current military assets. The planet's defenses had been designed primarily for asteroid deflection and space debris management. The orbital platforms could handle small threats, but nothing had been built to fight an interstellar war. What military assets do we have that could reach Hanbit? Song asked. Admiral Shin's response was sobering. Using our current fleet, we could mount a response force of perhaps 50 ships. The journey would take 8 months each way using conventional faster-than-light drives. By the time we arrived, any rescue mission would likely be meaningless. What about our experimental programs? Song pressed. Are there any advanced technologies that could change our response capabilities? Dr. Moon exchanged glances with several other officials before answering. Mr. President, there are classified research programs that have achieved significant breakthroughs, but they were never intended for military deployment. Explain. Project Deep Strike has successfully tested quantum tunneling drives that could reduce interstellar travel time to a matter of weeks instead of months. Project Iron Mind has developed neural-linked combat systems that allow human pilots to control multiple spacecraft simultaneously. Project Evolution has created biological enhancement programs that could adapt human physiology for extended space combat operations. Admiral Shin leaned forward. Those programs have been theoretical research only. None of them have been tested under combat conditions. President Song's expression hardened. They're about to be tested. Dr. Moon, I'm authorizing immediate military deployment of every advanced technology in our research pipeline. Admiral Shin, I want production facilities converted to military manufacturing immediately. General Yu, begin recruiting volunteers for enhancement programs. The meeting continued for 12 hours as Earth's leadership grappled with the reality that humanity faced an existential threat. The aliens who had attacked New Sol possessed overwhelming technological superiority and had demonstrated their willingness to commit genocide against human civilians. Earth's response had to be swift, decisive, and devastating. Within 72 hours, President Song addressed the Global Assembly in an emergency session broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system. Her words were measured, but carried the weight of absolute conviction. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, we face the greatest threat in our species' history. Our friends and families on New Sol have been attacked by alien forces that show no regard for human life or human rights. They believe we are primitive and weak, incapable of defending ourselves or seeking justice for their crimes. The assembly chamber fell silent as song continued. They have made a fundamental error in judgment. They have awakened something they do not understand and cannot control. They have awakened humanity's capacity for total war. The transformation of human civilization began immediately. Every major industrial facility on Earth converted to military production. The asteroid mining operations in the outer system began extracting materials for warship construction. Advanced manufacturing systems that had been used to build habitats and terraforming equipment were reprogrammed to create weapons of unprecedented destruction. Captain Sungmin Han was among the first volunteers for the enhancement programs. A veteran of Earth's Special Forces, he understood that fighting an interstellar war would require capabilities beyond normal human limitations. The biological adaptation chambers could modify human physiology to survive in any environment, resist various forms of radiation, and operate effectively in zero gravity for extended periods. The enhancement process was grueling. Han's nervous system was rewired to interface directly with advanced combat systems. His reflexes were accelerated to superhuman levels. His brain was modified to process multiple data streams simultaneously while maintaining perfect tactical awareness. Most importantly, his emotional responses were adjusted to eliminate fear and hesitation when facing humanity's enemies. Dr. Moon's weapons research teams worked without rest to develop technologies that could challenge alien superiority. The quantum tunneling drives allowed instantaneous travel between any 2 points in space, giving human forces unprecedented strategic mobility. The neural-linked control systems meant that a single human pilot could coordinate the actions of dozens of ships with perfect precision. But the most terrifying innovation was the Cascade virus, a weapon that Dr. Moon designed specifically for use against technologically advanced species. The virus could infiltrate any computer system and rewrite its programming to turn technology against its users. Alien ships would find their own weapons targeting their own vessels. Life support systems would become death traps. Admiral Shin oversaw the construction of humanity's warfleet using technologies that had been theoretical just months before. The ships themselves were unlike anything ever built by human hands. They incorporated lessons learned from centuries of warfare, adapted for the three-dimensional battlefields of space combat. Each vessel could engage multiple targets simultaneously, while coordinating with thousands of other ships through quantum communication networks. The hulls were constructed from materials that could self-repair during combat. The weapons systems drew power directly from pocket dimensions, providing virtually unlimited firepower. General Yu established training programs that turned ordinary humans into instruments of total war. Volunteers underwent psychological conditioning that made them immune to fear, doubt, or mercy when facing those who had harmed human civilians. They learned to fight with the cold efficiency of machines while retaining the tactical creativity that made humans uniquely dangerous. The industrial mobilization exceeded anything in human history. Earth's population worked around the clock to build the tools of retribution. Elderly engineers came out of retirement to design weapon systems. Children too young for military service worked in factories producing components for the war fleet. Artists and musicians composed battle hymns that would inspire human forces across the galaxy. Within 6 months, Earth had transformed from a peaceful civilization into a war machine of unprecedented capability. The fleet consisted of 15,000 ships, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The crews were enhanced humans who could think and react faster than any alien species. The weapons could destroy entire star systems if necessary. President Song delivered her final address before the fleet departed for Hanbit. We go not as conquerors, but as the instruments of justice. We go not to claim territory, but to ensure that no species ever again dares to harm human beings. We go to teach the galaxy that humanity may forgive many things, but genocide is not among them. Admiral Shin commanded the fleet from the flagship Retribution, a vessel that incorporated every advanced technology Earth had developed. Captain Han led the elite strike forces that would spearhead the assault on hegemony positions. Dr. Moon's weapons waited in the ship's arsenals, ready to turn alien technology against itself. The journey to Hanbit took 3 weeks using the quantum tunneling drives. During the voyage, human forces practiced coordination drills that would have been impossible for any other species. The human fleet materialized in Hanbit's outer system without warning, their quantum tunneling drives allowing them to bypass all hegemony detection networks. Admiral Shin's 15,000 ships appeared simultaneously across a volume of space, larger than most solar systems, their formations calculated to achieve maximum tactical advantage in the opening moments of combat. Captain Kyung Sato commanded the hegemony patrol squadron that detected the human arrival. His 47 ships represented standard border security for conquered territory, equipped with sensors designed to detect conventional faster-than-light approaches. The quantum tunneling technology was completely unknown to hegemony forces, giving the humans total surprise. Sato's first transmission to Admiral Korth on Hanbit reflected his confusion rather than alarm. Command: We're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the outer system. Estimate 15,000 unknown vessels of unidentified configuration. Request identification protocols. Admiral Korth was reviewing mining output reports when the message arrived. The numbers seemed impossible. 15,000 ships represented a larger fleet than most galactic powers possessed. The humans were supposed to be a primitive species with limited spacefaring capability. Confirm those numbers, Captain, Korth replied. Are you certain your sensors are functioning correctly? Before Sato could respond, the human attack began. Captain Seungmin Han's strike forces had used the quantum drives to position themselves within weapons range of every hegemony vessel simultaneously. The enhanced humans coordinated their assault through neural links that allowed them to function as a single tactical entity. Sato's flagship exploded without warning as weapons fire materialized from empty space. The humans had somehow managed to achieve perfect targeting solutions on targets they should not have been able to detect. His escort vessels began disappearing in rapid succession, destroyed by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Patrol Squadron's final transmission lasted only seconds. Unknown hostiles engaging with advanced weapons technology. Total losses imminent. Warn the fleet that these are not primitive vessels. They fight like nothing we have ever encountered. Admiral Korth watched his outer perimeter dissolve in minutes. The tactical display showed human forces advancing through hegemony positions with mechanical precision. Every alien ship that engaged the attackers was destroyed within moments, often by weapons fire that came from multiple directions simultaneously. Overlord Dreeken arrived at the command center as reports flooded in from across the system. Admiral, we're facing coordinated attack patterns that require communication faster than light speed. Their reaction times are impossible unless they possess some form of instantaneous tactical coordination. Korth studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. The human fleet moved with perfect synchronization, each ship knowing exactly where every other vessel would be at any given moment. They were fighting as if the entire fleet shared a single mind. What are our casualty reports? Korth asked. Outer patrol squadrons have been completely eliminated, Dreeken replied. Mid-range defense platforms are under attack by forces that appeared without warning in their midst. The humans seem capable of instantaneous travel to any point in space. Dr. Ji-hee Moon's Cascade virus began its work as human forces closed with the main hegemony fleet. The virus had been designed to infiltrate alien computer systems through any form of electronic contact, including weapons fire and communication signals. Once inside a ship's systems, it rewrote fundamental programming to turn the vessel's own technology against its crew. Hegemony warships found their life support, systems reversing atmospheric composition, slowly suffocating their crews with their own air recycling equipment. Weapon systems began targeting other hegemony vessels instead of human attackers. Navigation computers sent ships on collision courses with their own allies. Captain Horace Vell commanded a heavy battlecruiser that had participated in the original attack on New Sol. His ship carried some of the crystals that had been mined by human slave labor, intended for delivery to hegemony weapons research facilities. When the Cascade virus infected his systems, those same crystals became conduits for feedback that destroyed his ship's power grid. Command, we're experiencing total systems failure, Vel reported. Our own equipment is attacking us. Weapons are firing on friendly vessels. Life support is trying to kill the crew. How is this possible? Admiral Shin's response came through captured hegemony communication channels. This is Admiral Taehyung Shin of the Human Defense Force. You are experiencing justice. Your forces committed genocide against human civilians. Now you face the consequences of awakening humanity's capacity for total war. The human fleet had not come to negotiate or demand surrender. They had come to deliver retribution for the massacre of New Sol. Every hegemony vessel in the system was marked for destruction. Every alien who had participated in the slaughter would pay with their life. Captain Han led the assault on the orbital platforms where hegemony forces had established their command centers. His enhanced soldiers moved through alien ship corridors with superhuman speed and accuracy, their neural implants allowing them to anticipate enemy movements before the aliens could react. The fighting was brutal and one-sided. Hegemony troops had been trained to suppress primitive species with inferior technology. They had never faced an enemy that could think faster, move quicker, and coordinate more effectively than they could. Human soldiers seemed to know where every alien would be before the aliens themselves knew where they were going. Admiral Korth's flagship came under direct assault as human boarding parties materialized throughout the vessel using personal quantum tunneling devices. The aliens found themselves fighting enemies who could appear anywhere at any moment, striking from directions that should have been impossible. Overlord Draken made a final attempt to contact the Galactic Tribunal for assistance. This is Hegemony. Command requesting immediate intervention under galactic law. We are under attack by human forces using weapons and tactics that violate established conventions of warfare. President Song's response was broadcast to every ship in the system and transmitted throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Tribunal authorized the genocide of human civilians. You forfeited any protection under galactic law when you chose to murder our families. There will be no intervention. There will be no mercy. There will be only justice. The liberation of Hanbit's surface began as human forces overwhelmed the orbital defenses. Captain Han's soldiers descended to the planet using drop pods that could navigate through any defensive fire. Their first priority was securing the slave labor camps where the surviving colonists were imprisoned. What they found exceeded their worst expectations. The detention facilities contained skeletal figures who barely resembled the healthy colonists who had once called Hanbit home. Children had been forced to work in the mines until their bodies broke. Elderly humans had been abandoned to die when they could no longer contribute to the mining operations. Commander Jiwon Park was among the survivors, but she was almost unrecognizable after months of forced labor and starvation. When human soldiers reached her work detail, she collapsed from relief rather than exhaustion. You came, she whispered. I never stopped believing you would come. The sight of what had been done to their people eliminated any possibility that human forces might show restraint in dealing with the hegemony. The aliens had not simply conquered a colony. They had systematically tortured and murdered civilians, whose only crime was building homes on a world they thought was unclaimed. Dr. Moon's final weapon was deployed against the hegemony homeworld itself. The virus had been collecting data on alien technology throughout the battle, learning how their systems functioned and how to turn them into instruments of destruction. When transmitted to HFY-Prime, it would cause every piece of advanced technology on the planet to malfunction. Catastrophically, power plants would overload and explode. Transportation systems would crash. Communication networks would broadcast signals that damaged the equipment trying to receive them. The technological civilization that had enabled hegemony conquest would collapse within hours. Overlord Dreken's execution was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Admiral Shin personally delivered the judgment. You ordered the systematic murder of 2.3 million human civilians, including children and elderly non-combatants. You established slave labor camps and worked our people to death. The penalty for genocide is death. The broadcast continued with footage from the labor camps, showing the galaxy exactly what the hegemony had done to innocent humans. The images of starving children and broken families sparked outrage among species that had previously considered the conflict a minor territorial dispute. The final battle for Hanbit lasted 18 hours. When it ended, not a single hegemony vessel remained operational. Their ground installations had been reduced to smoking craters. The aliens who had participated in the genocide were dead, while those who had simply followed orders were left to face trial for war crimes. Supreme, Arbitrator Vexthul attempted to contact Admiral Shin as the human fleet prepared to leave Hanbit. "Admiral,